information that the defense should not know about. Prosecutor in the Delphi Murders Case is withdrawing his motion for Richard Allen's prison mental health records.
All of this comes just a day after we reported that his motion contained information about the defense case that was supposed to be private.
Yet another twist report in the Delphi Murders Case.
It's kind of hard not to get distracted by some of the sideshows in the Delphi case. I mentioned in my last video about how I'm bursting to do a few videos for some of the playlists that I have in regards to the Delphi case, but I'll be honest, I got none of that done in the last few days. All my spare time was spent reading up about ex parte motions, which was good, but a lot of irrelevant nonsense as well to do with the contempt hearing. I'm now a bit annoyed I got distracted by some of it because I was doing well. I was just doing my own thing. There's so much smoke and mirrors in this case. It's insane. I'm unsure if it's intentional or unintentional, but there's a lot of focus in the Delphi case on things that do not really matter in the bigger picture. Since the Supreme Court ruling, it appears, I don't think she would have, but it does appear as if the Dishonourable Judge Francis Gull is going to kick Richard Allen's attorneys off the case again. This time she's following process. Nick filed a motion for contempt and she tried to schedule in as fast as she could. Richard Allen has now filed for an early trial, and that, in my opinion, makes kicking them off this case impossible without ending up back at the Supreme Court and risking this whole case collapsing. The Supreme Court justices were very concerned about the impact on removing a defendant's public attorneys, what that will have on their right to a speedy trial. It wasn't in their consideration, but they talked a lot about it. Like I said, I don't think the judge was going to remove them, but you don't know with her, and filing for an early trial makes that pretty much impossible. But Fanny Gull and inexperienced Nick probably failed to take into consideration is the impact that David Hennessy is going to have on any contempt hearing. Hennessy is the attorney for the attorneys. He is representing Richard Allen's attorneys, Andy and Brad. Hennessy is a nightmare. Coming up against him in anything seems like a disaster. This guy has won, not trialed, he has won over 100 murder cases. When I was first told about Hennessy and his experience, I didn't believe it. I had to look it up. And then when you look this guy up and you see the stuff he's done, it's kind of scary, because I think he got a lot of people off as well, because his numbers are pretty extraordinary. If this was a boxing match based off fights and experience between Hennessy and Nick, it's not even getting sanctioned. There's no governing body going to sign off on that, because it's a mismatch and someone's probably going to get killed, and it's not the guy with all the experience. This whole contempt hearing is now a giant waste of time. Like, what's going to happen? Baldwin will get a slap on the wrist and a fine. Should he? Yeah, he probably should actually. He was very sloppy, didn't lock doors, needs to be taught a lesson about trusting the wrong people. He messed up 100%, but he didn't organise this leak, in my opinion, based off what I have seen. Is this the best way to reprimand Baldwin? I'm not so sure. It's such a distraction. It's such a waste of time and resources.
Yet another twist report in the Delphi Murders Case. We are now getting a preview of the evidence that Richard Allen's attorneys plan to present to defend themselves against contempt charges by the prosecutor.
Well, the hearing is now 10 days away.
Rich and I back live in studio tonight with a defense exhibit list that focuses on communication between the prosecutor and also crime podcasters.
When Hennessy made its filing yesterday, or was it the day before, like, my first thought was, what a load of bull. There is stuff in there, in the exhibits, that is not at all what he is describing, and not at all what his description of it is. I've seen some of them. It's out of context, clipped up, mashed up, rubbish, and at least one is fake. Either that or the description of it is a lie, basically. However, when I woke up this morning, I was like, does Hennessy even care? He's an attorney. He's a really good attorney. He's representing clients. He's going to do whatever he needs to make this contempt hearing a shit show. I don't think he's trying to silence anyone. I think he's just very happy to turn this contempt hearing into a poop show and defend his clients. He probably knows a lot of the stuff he has is poop. Does he care? This is a poop fest and you need to bring poop, otherwise you're going to be the one that's covered in all of it. I do think Andy B should face consequences, but he'd rather not. He's a defence attorney. If you did something wrong and you were up in court and your attorney tells you, hey, I can get you off on this, are you going to be like, oh no thank you, I'd rather not make any arguments and take whatever punishment they want? You're not. Well, you might. You're a better person than me if you do. I'm not. I don't want to lie down and just take it if there's a good argument to be made. And another major concern I have around this whole contempt hearing fiasco is how much hours, how much time this week, last week, next week is Nick McClelland going to spend on this, preparing for this. He should be preparing for the actual trial instead, the one that matters, because that's what's most important. He's already embarrassed himself this week. After the motion for the speedy trial went in, he made a desperate attempt to get Richard Allen's medical records again. He really, really, really wants them. And during this filing, he admitted to reading an ex parte motion, something which he should not have access to and he should not be reading. Very quickly, after this was filed, attorneys, journalists started to lose their minds because Nick isn't allowed to see some of the stuff which he said he saw. Like, there's many attorneys, it seems, in a lot of states that won't even file these ex parte motions digitally. They'll have a paper copy, they'll go to the judge's chambers, they'll try to get a sign there, and then after the trial, they'll file them all. They just don't want to take any chances that this gets into the wrong hands because it's defence strategy. It's what needs to happen if you want a fair trial.
Information that the defense should not know about.
Yeah, Rich Nye has been talking with legal experts who are concerned tonight about how the prosecutor learned the name of a potential defense expert witness.
Leaked information. We've heard that before in this case too, right? Carroll County Prosecutor Nicholas McClelland is asking for the mental health records of Richard Allen since he was moved to a state prison. But in the prosecutor's court filing, he cites information that was only available in a private defense document.
Someone may have leaked something they shouldn't have done. That's certainly possible. And if that's true, the court will no doubt want to find out who it was that leaked it.
It raises questions on how another party here, the state of Indiana, would have received a copy of an ex parte motion.
New tonight, the prosecutor in the Delphi Murders Case is withdrawing his motion for Richard Allen's prison mental health records.
All of this comes just a day after we reported that his motion contained information about the defense case that was supposed to be private.
Rich Nye joins us back live in studio tonight with a quick reversal by the prosecutor and his explanation about this to the court.
Carroll County Prosecutor Nicholas McClelland referred to a psychologist the defense wanted to hire to evaluate Richard Allen. But that information was in an ex parte motion that was supposed to be only for the eyes of the judge to approve funding. McClelland says he did not know that the motion was private, that is. In fact, he says in his motion to withdraw that he also had access to 3 previous ex parte motions.
His defense that he just looking at a bunch of papers and not paying attention isn't terribly impressive, as an objective observer from outside. That's my reaction to it.
And I'm not going to lie, when I first read this motion, I didn't even spot that. That's one good thing for me that came out of the last few days. My knowledge around ex parte motions and the issues that public attorneys have to deal with, especially in a digital age. It's such a rookie mistake by Nick. And he probably would have gotten away with reading every ex parte motion that's filed from now to the trial if he didn't open his mouth. He could have gotten away with being a really good, corrupt prosecutor. He really slipped up. And then he withdraws his motion for medical records the following day and gives the worst excuse ever. Oh, I just clicked on it. I didn't know I was meant to not have access. Blame the clerk. And he also admits to reading all previous ex parte motions. Like, talk about trying to dig yourself out of a hole. What a mess. This isn't the end of this for Nick. Is he going to get held in contempt of court now? Are we going to have a hearing for this? Something will happen. I promise you, something will happen. Baldwin, Rozzi, with the help of Hennessy, are probably writing their response right now. What they don't want to do, though, is, at least not seriously, is try to kick Nick off this case. If that happens, they will get a special prosecutor with experience, and if they file that motion, because it represents Richard Allen, they're going to have to waive their right to a speedy trial, because any new special prosecutor would have to be given time to catch up. They don't want that. Like, if you're Allen's defence team, you love Nick. You want Nick on this case. You want to be dealing. You don't want to be dealing with a special prosecutor over Nick. That'd be madness. They would much rather have the guy who makes mistakes, who doesn't understand ex parte motions, who has zero experience, someone who is probably going to drive this case towards a mistrial. It would be madness to seriously move to kick Nick off this case, but they're going to do something. They can't leave it just slide. They're not going to leave Nick get away with reading and accessing private documents after he files a motion to hold them in contempt of court. Like, what Nick is doing here is 100% interfering with Richard Allen's right to a fair trial. They will definitely do something to annoy Nick, get him a slap on the wrist, but more importantly, just waste as much of his time as you can. It's all a big distraction from the most important thing and the reason I follow this case, justice for Abby and Libby. I just want the right people caught for this. I don't care who gets what slap on the wrist or who gets slapped harder. I wish Nick would just cancel the contempt hearing, withdraw the motion. He walked himself into trouble trying to please Francis. It's not worth the aggro of dealing with Hennessy. I would look to scrap that hearing, and I would we'll scrap that hearing. You just leave Nick off with accessing those documents. Just scrap all of them, one for one. I wish they could just come to some agreement. You stop filing motions to hold me in contempt of court, and I'll stop filing motions to hold you in contempt of court. Let's just concentrate on the trial, because this only really benefits the defence. They're going to waste so much of Nick's time. And the only reason he probably filed this motion anyway was just trying to back up his friend, the judge. I don't think the hearing is going to be cancelled. Judge Frances Gull really wants to get some stuff on the record. She wants to embarrass the defence, but Hennessy is going to do his job. And that's where we're headed for the next few weeks. Big drama at the contempt hearing. All that stuff will come out at Westerman's trial anyway in a few months. So everyone's going to know that stuff anyway. We don't need this contempt hearing to find that stuff out. And then Nick is going to get pulled up and is going to have to explain why he's accessing documents that he shouldn't have. Waste of time, smoke and mirrors, benefits to defence only, and stops us all from talking about Rick. I wish everyone could just shut up, put on your big boy pants, put on your big girl pants, stop whinging, and remember what's important. Everyone should be preparing for a trial and not dealing with this nonsense. Good luck, God bless. I hope everyone has a nice day.